Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Tejinder Sharma from Department of Commerce, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. Today we are going to talk on the module Decision Making, Techniques and Processes from the paper Principles and Practices of Management. The objective of this module is to enable you to describe the nature of decision making, learn about various types of decision making, understand the concept, advantages, disadvantages and process of various types of decision making, and to elaborate the process of decision making process. Before we go further, students, it is really very important to understand the very concept of decision. What exactly do we mean by decision when we say the main role of a manager is to take decisions? A decision is a choice. You know, every situation we are faced with alternatives. So decision is basically the issue of making a choice from two or more alternatives. It is not as easy as it sounds, because decision has got its implementation, has got its implications on many other aspects of the subsequent performance of the organizations and individuals. Therefore, decision making can be defined as an act of choice by the manager from among two or more possible alternative courses of action in a given situation. Let us try to understand the nature of decision making. Decision making is a selective process. Since there are a large number of alternatives, the manager has to choose the one which is the best within his set of circumstances. Hence, it is a selective process. Decision making is not something that happens at one time and then there is no need to take a decision. Decision making is a continuous activity which happens in the organizations. Decision making is also a goal oriented process, because every decision that a manager takes is within the framework of a goal which that manager has to achieve. Decision making also entails some risk taking, and it is definitely a very challenging task, because if a decision goes wrong, then the entire inputs that have been invested into that decision making, they can be wasted. Then decision making is not a mechanical activity. It's not something that can be done with the help of some mechanical devices. Decision making is a creative activity. Decision making is an intellectual activity, and decision making is a mental activity. A lot of decision making depends upon how skilled the person who is taking the decision is. And lastly, the decision making is a goal oriented process. Decision making is a human and a rational process and is based on a reliable information, which is a very vital input for taking any decision. Decision making is also a time consuming activity and requires effective communication between the people. Decision making is also a persuasive process and needs lot of commitment on the part of all the people who are associated with it. Since the managers deal with a diversity of situations and play diversity of roles, therefore, there is also a diversity in the levels of decision makings. Every decision entails two very important components. One is the risk component. Every decision that you take carries certain amount of risk. There is a risk of failure, there is a risk of loss as a result of taking a particular decision. And every decision that is taken is always taken under some degree of uncertainty, because whenever there are alternatives, there are possibilities that the outcomes of those alternatives will be different, implying that there is going to be some degree of uncertainty within which you have to perform. So depending upon different levels in which a manager is functioning, the degree of uncertainty and risk varies, and the managers have to take the decisions within this broad framework of risk and uncertainty. let us try to understand some levels of decisions and how they pertain to the risk and uncertainty at different levels of management. Starting from the lower management. The lower management decisions are primarily programmed decisions. Programmed decisions or the certain decisions, because the perspective of the decisions is very narrow. The perspective of the decisions is within a very small domain. They have to deal with routine kinds of the decisions. For instance, say we have a shop floor manager. The types of decisions that a shop floor manager would have to deal would be, say, how to meet the production target which has been assigned to that manager, how to deal with the absenteeism, how to get the raw material, how to get the other resources so that today's objective can be achieved. There won't be much of a risk involved in it. Maybe maximum risk could be some delays or some, say, lack of coordination between the resources, and the loss would also be to the extent of maybe loss of a day's production maximum. So there is a very limited range of uncertainty, there is a very limited range of risk. And moreover, say he takes a decision today, tomorrow also he'll take a same decision, day after tomorrow also that manager will take a same decision. So there is going to be a repetitiveness in the kinds of the decisions which people at the lower level of management are going to make. As one rises in the hierarchy, let's say one goes to the middle management. Middle management is faced with certain degree of uncertainty. The types of problems which middle management face would be different from the problems which the lower management face. So as the uncertainty rises, the decisions of middle management tend to become non-programmed decisions. When you work under uncertainty, you also encounter certain risks. So whenever middle management has to take decisions, they will have to take the decisions which are not the routine decisions, or the decisions which have got a broader perspective, a broader horizon. For instance, a middle manager, factory manager would be looking at the decisions for production, such as what can be, say, different ways of cost cutting for arriving at the similar kind of a product, or what can be the newer machines or newer technologies that can be installed. Now this will be typical middle management decisions. You don't take in a routine, but you take with a particular time frame, you take with a particular time horizon. Now there are higher degrees of risks and there are higher degrees of uncertainty also within which the middle management performs. Now middle management gets a broad framework of their domains from the top management. The top management's role in an organization is really very important, because top management has to do what is known as the strategic planning, the vision, or have to take the decisions under absolute uncertainties. At times they have to take decisions under uncertainties. The top management needs to take non-programmed decisions. For instance, while specifying vision, they might look at, say, setting a target of, say, achieving a sales of a particular amount in next 3 years or 5 years. And this will entail a very thorough understanding of the environment, very thorough understanding of the competition. Only then probably they will be able to take a particular decision which will be under a high degree of uncertainty, and it will also carry a high degree of risk. So depending upon different levels, the nature of decisions and types of decisions that manager takes in the organizations, they are quite different. Programmed decisions. Programmed decisions are repetitive in nature and do not require much deliberation. These types of decisions can be handled through established rules, procedures, policies, and standard operating procedures. These types of decisions are made by middle level or the lower level managers in accordance with some policies, rules, and procedures. Programmed decisions are used for dealing with complex as well as uncomplicated issues. Decisions are action-oriented, and mistakes made are also not very costly, and the resources required by them are less. Let us take the case of a shop manager who is taking a decision on production planning on day-to-day basis in his shop floor. For him, he has to do the same kind of a job on daily basis. He has to see that the production targets are met and those targets are given on daily basis. The only problems that he would have to face probably would be the raw material, the availability of power, the availability of personnel, and if they are not available, the maximum loss would be maybe 1 day's production. Hence, there is a very limited domain for this type of the decisions. The second set of decisions are the non-programmed decisions. The decisions which are non-repetitive in nature and are made by top management. These decisions are of long-term horizon, and these decisions require high resources. These decisions are thinking-oriented, and the mistakes can put a company in jeopardy. The intuition and experience are major factors when a manager has to take this kind of a decision. For instance, say the top production team working in close association with research and development wing is planning to implement a new process to increase the output and the quality of a product. Now, this will entail long-term horizon. This will require high resources. A high degree of risk is associated. A failure would cost millions of rupees. So, this would be the intuition and experience of the managers which will help in minimizing the risk of such a decision. Then decisions can be also classified as major and minor decisions. Some of the decisions can be considered as more important and they can be prioritized. They are known as major decisions. Usually the decisions that are strategic in nature, when you are implementing newer technologies, replacement of men with machine, product diversification, diversification of markets, all these are major decisions where you are taking a very high degree of risk. Similarly, there could be some minor decisions, the decisions related to maybe some inventory positions, maybe other things, which can be done by the lower level managers and are not so prioritized for the top management. So decisions differ on this. Then decisions also can be classified as routine and strategic decisions. The routine decisions are the tactical decisions with high degree of efficiency in the organizational activities and are of short duration and taken by the middle level or the lower level managers. The strategic decisions are related to policy matters, the impact of which is felt for a very long period of time, the decisions pertaining to, say, plant location, selection of distribution channels, starting of new products. All those would be the typical examples of some of the strategic decisions which the firms have to take. In case the decision is right, the firms make a lot of profits, and in case the decision is not correct, then it seriously influences the interests of the business and the cost of mistakes can be very high. They also have a requirement of a good deal of deliberation and they can be unique and one-time decisions. Then there are organizational and personal decisions. Organizational decisions are taken by the top executives for official purposes. They affect the organizational activities directly, and those who are in the power take the organizational decisions which can be delegated from the superior to the subordinate. The personal decisions are related to the decisions taken in the personal capacity of the employees, not as a member of organizations, and usually they are not delegated down to the authority. Then there are group decisions as well as individual decisions. Individual decisions are the ones in which a single employee is involved, and it's a traditional approach to decision making and can work effectively for a manager when the group's input is not required in certain cases. There are both advantages, that it is fast and usually the individuals cannot escape the responsibilities and the decisions are more focused and rational. The disadvantages are that there is less information that is collected by the individuals and there can be lack of talent and competence. Group decisions are the decisions wherein a large number of people in a group, they join their resources to take the decisions. There are two models of group decision making. One is the consensus decision making and second is the consultation decision making. Let us try to see the advantages of a group decision making. When a group makes a decision collectively, its judgment can be keener than any of its members. Sharing of information amongst the group members is another advantage of the group decision making process. A group can generate a large number of alternatives, and this decision making process will enhance the employees' skills and abilities and help them to grow and develop as organizational members. When employees contribute to decision making process, they tend to have a greater commitment to implementing the decisions. Group decision making is more democratic in nature. Some of the disadvantages of group decision making are that firstly, groups are generally slower to arrive at a decision. Then at times, there can be group polarization, and the decisions made by the group may not always be in accordance with the goals and objectives of the organizations. Group decisions can make it easier for the members to deny personal responsibility and blame others for the bad decisions. Groupthink is a type of thinking that occurs when reaching agreements becomes more important to the group members than arriving at the decisions. Students, let us understand some of the techniques of group decision making. Group decision making is more difficult as compared to individual decision making. In the individual decision making, one single person has to take a decision and he can rely on his own knowledge, intellect and other inputs on the basis of which the decisions can be taken. But when it comes to group decision making, you need to take into account the perspectives of different people, and arriving at a consensus of a larger number of people entails lot of creativity and challenges. Therefore, the techniques of group decision making, they are different from the techniques for an individual decision making. There are several techniques for group decision making, but we'll be discussing only a few of them. We'll be discussing about brainstorming, the Delphi technique, the nominal group technique, the dialectic decision technique, and the electronic meetings. Brainstorming. Brainstorming was developed by Alex Osborne in 1938 to stimulate the idea generation for decision making. It is a conference technique which involves 10 to 15 people, by which a group attempts to find a solution for a specific problem by amassing all the ideas spontaneously contributed by its members. The second technique used for group decision making is the nominal group technique, or the NGT. This technique was developed by André Delbecq and Andrew Van de Ven. It is a structured group meeting which restricts the verbal communication and discussion amongst the members during the decision-making process. The group members are all physically present, but they operate independently, and then finally they arrive at a decision. As shown in the figure, the process of nominal group techniques starts with the outlining of the problem which requires the decision. All the members must know what is the problem on which they are sitting to arrive at a decision. After having understood the problem clearly, sufficiently, and with the parameters in the quantified term, the next stage is to write down the ideas on the problem independently. Each of the member present in the room views the problem from his or her own perspective and writes down the ideas to solve the problem. After having done so, the ideas are presented for discussion and evaluation, and then the ideas are ranked for the decision making. Hence, the best alternative is chosen from the combined intellect of the people there. Another technique which is quite commonly used is the Delphi technique. It is also a group decision making process that can be used by decision making groups when the individual members are in different physical locations. This was developed by Norman Dahlke and Ola F. Helmer at Rand Corporation. This technique comprises of the first step wherein problem is identified and the experts who are likely to offer the solutions to the problems, they are gathered at the same place. The proposed problem is presented to the experts for solutions through the questionnaire. The responses of the experts, they are collected, and then the questionnaires, the data which has been generated with the help of the questionnaires, that is compiled, and then it is reviewed so as to arrive at a result on the basis of the questionnaire. The process is repeated until the consensus is reached. Another technique that is nowadays being used in the age of information technology is the electronic meetings, wherein the nominal group techniques and the sophisticated computer technology, they join together, and the experts who can make their contribution, they sit together with the help of electronic technology and hold an electronic meeting to discuss the problem and arrive at the solution. In addition to these, there are dialectic decision techniques. The advantage of dialectic approach is that there are different range of ideas that can be explored. It provides help while on emphasizing the point of contention, that is the critical point. It provides with the incentive for bridging simultaneously the irreconcilable opposites, and also various sorts of incentives are provided in order to determine the factors of creativity. The figure shows the steps in dialectic decision making, in which a problem is shared with a group and two proposals, say a proposal A and proposal B, they are generated. After the two proposals have been generated, the assumptions underlying the proposal A and proposal B, they are identified. The presentation of proposal A will involve its pros as well as cons, and the same will be done for the proposal B. After analyzing both proposal A and proposal B in terms of its assumptions and pros and cons, a final choice will be made, and on the basis of that choice we'll have, say, alternatives, either to go for the proposal A or B, or a compromise of the proposal A or B. And if both of them are unable to offer any proper solution to a problem, then go and look for a newer alternative. So this way, looking at different, say, alternatives, different approaches to solving a problem, the decision which is most optimal is taken. Then there are subjective and objective decisions. The objective decisions are the result of due deliberations and careful consideration of the factors and forces pertinent to the issue or to the problem to be solved, and are known as objective decisions. Subjective decisions are made in an organization without conscious mental effort and are known as the subjective decisions. So finally, we see that decision-making process basically comprises of the 7 stages. The first stage, starting from identifying the problem. After identifying the problem, the next stage is gathering the information and then identifying the alternatives. After the alternative approaches to solving the problems have been identified, the evaluation of the alternatives is done and a best choice is arrived at. After the best choice has been arrived at, the action is taken and the results are again measured so that the future decision making can be made on the basis of the outcomes which have been taken from the earlier decisions. So students, let us now recapitulate what we have learnt in this module. In this module, we have learned that decision making is both managerial function and an organizational process. It is managerial because it is the fundamental responsibility of every manager. It is an organizational process because many decisions transcend the individual managers and become the product of groups or teams. Decision making involves every walk of life and it is relevant in the organizational as well as non-organizational contexts. In the organizational contexts, decisions may vary from major ones like determining of organizational objectives or deciding about major projects to specific decisions about day-to-day operations. Therefore, there are different types of decisions which are made by the managers in the organization, and for each type of decision, the decision making variables and conditions differ. We have also studied various techniques of decision making for the individuals as well as for the groups.